Good evening. Welcome to the June 27th, 2022 Kingston City Land Bank Public Board Meeting being held virtually. My name is Mike Gilliard. I serve as the Executive Director of the organization. We do ask that members of the public limit their comments to no more than 2 minutes per speaker. And as moderator, I do reserve the right to eject any members of the public who I feel are behaving in an inappropriate manner. With that, I'll turn it over to the board chair, Daniel Cantor. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. June 2022 board meeting. Let's start with our very exciting roll call. My name is Daniel Cantor. I am at 142 Clinton Avenue in Kingston. Bob, where are you?
I'm Bob Dennison. I'm at 122 Wilson Avenue, Kingston, New York.
Bartek.
Bartek Stardai, 354 South Wall Street, Kingston.
Vinya.
Vinya Jeanette, 258 Main Street, Kingston.
Nate.
Nate Hennigan at 20 President's Place, Kingston.
And Aaron.
Aaron Chilowich, 75 Madison Avenue, Kingston, New York.
Great. Thanks, everyone. All right. It was a exciting month as per usual. So let's see. We unfortunately Jeannie Edwards has resigned from the board. So we're now seeking 2 new board members. We thank her for her service and wish her all the best. So on that note, we opened the application period about a month ago, almost a month ago. I think we've gotten 2 new applicants now. We decided to just leave the application open on the website because why not? So we now can just take applications at any time, and then as we need new board members, hopefully we'll have a robust list to pull from, so that's great. And also in light of that, we talked at governance, sorry Minya if I'm stepping on the report, but about creating a more formalized kind of document of board member like roles and responsibilities to help new potential members understand kind of what the commitment level is here. So that's great. Mike and I met with the current, I believe, board president and sort of acting executive director of the land trust. It was just good to kind of get updates. And so, you know, we hope that someday we'll be able to sort of partner with them in vacant properties that they might be able to use. So it was good to catch up. Over at Greenkill, things, as most of you know from this weekend, are rapidly wrapping up. So I think the contractors are planning to pretty much be out by the end of this week. The house looks great. Can't wait to see the refinished floors. And yeah, it's a beautiful house. So huge props to Owen and Maida Contracting and Rob at Maida, their foreman Rick, who has been there throughout, and they've really done a beautiful, beautiful job. And of course, Jess Farkas, who took the lead on the design of that building. In other news, Franklin GC has been hired and is set to start within the next few weeks. So that's really exciting. I will remind everyone again, that building has been vacant for nearly 40 years. So having progress on it, I personally find extremely exciting. So I can't wait for that to start. On the next 4 buildings under the Legacy Cities program, we found out kind of late in the game that 3 out of the 4 are actually in either like a historic district or a heritage area. So we had to go through a couple different rounds of approvals on those from those commissions. We, I believe, have succeeded in all 3 of them. So they were happy with our plans. So sounds like we're doing something right on the renovation front. Also on that front, Down Street has been cleaned out. If any of you have been in that building before the clean out, you know it was a huge job. So thank you to Edwin Villafuerte and team for getting that done for us. Good, reliable guys. Otherwise, neither here nor there, but maybe as a testament to us kind of doing something right and being recognized for it. I was asked to speak at Rensselaer University or Institute toward kind of at the end of July with Adam Zarenko, who's the chair of the New York State Land Bank Association and the executive director at the Albany County Land Bank. So it's cool to be asked. I'm going to do it. I'm kind of scared to speak to the Gen Zs, but that'll be fun. That's kind of all I can think of. I'm sure there's more, but let's maybe I'll leave it there. We have no members of the public, so we'll skip that. And then it's on to Mike's executive director report.
Thank you, Daniel.
You're welcome.
I was pulling this together and just kept recognizing that so many things are happening next month. So my headline is we're going to be very busy in July. Not that we aren't currently. To try not to restate what Daniel said, but to add to it, I will mention that our pipeline discussion under the pre-development section, I'm talking about our pipeline. The conversation is ongoing, and I believe we'll probably have some more updates on the committee level. For reference, we did begin this round of discussions in February, at which point we were told we might expect up to 12 new single-family homes from the city of Kingston through this process. In May, we agreed to move forward with the city's proposal, and subsequently we were told that this was being wrapped up into a slightly larger and more comprehensive plan for property acquisitions, dispositions, other related matters with the city. That will be presented by the city to the Common Council at the end of July to go through committee in August. And we hope to see on the 13th of September a vote by the council to approve this framework, after which we will have secured a reliable way to move forward with properties, which really unlocks a lot of many other great things. And so I really appreciate everyone's patience throughout this process. I did want to ask Nate, who's our fearless leader in this initiative, if there's anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think it's exciting that we've been given a bit more information, that there's a real timeline that this is going to be moving forward. Yeah, we hope that we'll stick to that timeline and we'll work together with the mayor's office to get that done.
Awesome, thank you. Under the pre-development section, we still have 8 properties. Did want to lead with the Legacy City section, and rather than bore you, I would ask Kyle to provide a much better update than I could on our Legacy Cities progress.
I can't promise it not being boring. It's kind of the same note with Legacy Cities as Mike was saying with the pipeline. Patience is kind of the key term. Progress has been slow and steady. We spent a lot of the last month making sure that the state's environmental requirements were met. As Daniel mentioned, we were going through the approval process with the Heritage Commissions and a few of those, and just ensuring that we have everything teed up for closing. At this point, we're on pace for closing calls to begin next week, hopefully closing over the next month and beginning construction early in August. Yeah, I think that's a high level where we're at with Legacy City, unless Legacy Cities, unless you have anything else to add, Mike.
No, I would just ask if anyone had any questions. Now would be a time. If we're glossing over things with too broad of a brush, it's just because we're so into the details and it's easy to maybe skip some important info.
I didn't watch the meetings, and I left after my presentation, Mike, as you know. But I am curious, did the HLPC, the Heritage Area Commission, or the Planning Board have any feedback on what you gave them for the Legacy Cities properties?
No. Thanks, though.
I would just add, because I think Mike and Kyle are being modest, that We are likely to be the first land bank in the state to close on this program, which is pretty cool. It's been very difficult, I know, changing goalposts and all kinds of things, but great job, guys.
Thanks. It's a new program. We're the first ones through it, and so we kind of take all the lumps to make the road for others. So I think it'll be easier for those who come behind us, I hope. But we're happy to be able to do it. Down to the other properties under our pre-development section, we still have Gill, Downs, and Henry in kind of the TBD category, although I believe at ADC committee, there might be some discussion about one of those. And finally, our 151 3rd Avenue development, which includes potential assemblage with a contiguous lot that was offered to us as a donation, but had some title issues. I have a modest update in that I've re-engaged with the owner of the summary judgment, which is precluding us from considering taking the donation. I'm scheduled to sit down with this person in the middle of next month. So I hope to have a more substantive update next month. Under the construction section, I know that there will be more updates at committee level, but just wanted to thank Daniel and Owen and everyone for seeing Greenkill through on schedule, on budget. Our final requisition is scheduled. As Daniel said, they're out of there very soon. We're on schedule for a certificate of occupancy, and it's a great testament to, you know, kind of the scrappiness of our work, but we keep the goalpost in mind. And so we're getting this one done. And as Daniel mentioned, we're jumping right into Franklin with a commencement date, probably, as Daniel said, in the next few weeks. And the owner selections are complete. So I wanted to say thank you very much to Daniel for that, and Owen for working with him as far as owner supplied materials. That's a big piece of the puzzle. So we have not only a general contract scope, but we have our selection of design committee elements to be incorporated and make it a wonderful building. So that feels very secure to me, and that will be our pilot. We did exactly what we said we were going to do, and I'm really excited about that. Moving down to the sales side, just to give an overview of the Greenkill campaign, we ended up with 74 new intake forms being filled out during the campaign. Add to this 99 that were filled out in between the two campaigns. So those were folks that were generally applying, but maybe not necessarily because we hadn't announced what the qualifications could be, but it was an additional 99 that went through that process. Of those, we currently have 9 completed application packages. This is the second step where the homeownership counselor actually provides an actual application and begins working with the families. Of those 9, there is 1 potential qualified applicant household. The other 8 are currently not qualified. They did not meet our program qualifications. And this begins the process for that 1 household to begin to try to obtain a pre-qualification letter from a bank, which we estimate could take about 2 to 3 months. So I know that there will be updates on what happens next and potential lottery and things like that at ADC, but that's where we're at in terms of the numbers. My second update on the sales side is 24 Hamilton. To recap, in March, we signed a license agreement for 90 days. Last month, there was a request to extend that license agreement in the context of work, making sure that things were still moving forward, but taking longer than anticipated. But of course, everything does with this work. And just before this meeting, we settled a final extension for another 30 days. So on August 15th will be the end of the license agreement term. I'm told that we will have plans to review tomorrow. And I do believe things are still moving forward in the way that we need them to be in order to sell the property. But if something were to happen beyond the August 15th date, I would go back to ADC and give them updates and talk about considering an additional extension if that's necessary, although I don't think it will be. On the funding update side, Legacy Cities subsidy grant, the second payment, I know I said this last month, but it should be released soon. I really believe for real this time. It is not in any way currently slowing down our process to close, but that it's a big piece of the puzzle. I keep it on the checklist just because I don't want to lose it. Next item would be the ARPA stimulus funding, for which the council approved a $1.1 million allocation to the KCLB. That was in April. I still think that we're some time off from being able to engage with the city around that, given that I don't believe the city has hired a grants manager for that program. So TBD or more to come on that. And the Kingston Housing Opportunity Fund, no updates other than to say we will be engaging with the Novo Foundation this week We talk about several other things, but including this fund. So by next month, I hope to have a substantive update on where that program sits in terms of timeline and support behind it. And then the last item under funding, I would ask Kyle to jump in on what's going on with the new exciting HCR program working with the New York Land Bank Association.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I just threw in the chat a letter that's been kind of the primary focus of the Land Bank Association, which is our land bank and members of 25 other land banks in the state. This letter was drafted. It's kind of been the main thing we've been focusing on recently. It's this item of figuring out how what our thoughts are about the $50 million in state funding for land banks that's going to be allocated by the Department of Homes and Community Renewal. The Land Bank Association then drafted this letter to the commissioner, to HCR, the commissioner of HCR, with their expectations and requests about how these funds can be best allocated, as well to push for some urgency on these funding, on the funding of this program. A letter focused on two main areas. Addressing the ongoing operational needs of the land banks themselves, and then expanding the scope and flexibility of funding to allow for work more tailored to the land bank's specific needs. So this kind of including our traditional land bank work, expanding that, but also focusing on some broader items like demolition and new construction. Hopefully, we can expand our scope a little bit with this next round of funding. This letter was sent on June 9th. As we expect to receive an outline of terms for funding in the immediate future. Not exactly going to be reflecting this letter we sent. We hope that is incorporated into a more detailed description of the program, which is we expect to come shortly after this broader outline. There's, other than that, we've been, well, yeah, I guess that's it for in terms of funding. Anything else you want to add, Mike?
No, thank you for that. I would just underscore that this letter was a process via committee with all 26 land banks. And so there's a lot of sort of consideration of everyone's needs. And I thought it was important to see all those issues come to the surface from rural land banks in addition to urban land banks. And it really is a comprehensive letter. And so we don't know, as Kyle said, we don't know what will come of it. We do believe there might be a first round of operating grant funding that's going to the individual land banks. How that's being allocated is unclear, at least to me, but we may see an initial funding receipt from the state of New York in advance of the program itself coming out with the second round. So we'll keep you in the loop and let you know when we hear something, but I think this is a pretty strong letter. So thanks. And then in the other category, I have a little to say other than just to note team photos are still on the back burner until all board members are seated. And that if we do go back to in-person meetings, we won't find out if that's a requirement, unfortunately, until July 14th. This happens every 30 days. But I did just want to note that going forward, under my understanding of the rules, a majority of board members will have to be physically present in the same location that will have to be accessible to the public. And any board member who seeks to attend remotely will have to be granted approval by the board chair due to quote unquote extenuating circumstances, which I will send around a definition if it becomes real. But just wanted to keep saying that every 30 days so that it's useful if it happens. And then the last thing I would mention, we went to the conference, June 8th, 9th, and 10th, New York Land Bank Association. I sent around some material with the board package, just kind of a slideshow of what other land banks are up to. I hope it's helpful for you to see. 4 land banks, I believe, celebrated their 10-year anniversary at the event. So we are not 10 years into this, but I think the distinction between the outcomes of the work that we're doing and the depth of the focus is very different based on different circumstances and various land banks. Syracuse just celebrated its 500th demolition, for example, in addition to the new construction and rehab work that they're doing, but we all have different challenges. We're approaching it in different ways, but just thought it might be a helpful insight into what everybody else is doing. And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. Can I ask a question, actually?
Yeah.
So with the Greenkill sales and marketing, I guess I have a few questions. Number one, how do you have kind of data on how this marketing period compared to the last marketing period?
Sure.
And
Just in terms of numbers? Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
I guess in terms of now, like I would assume we're hoping that there's additional qualified applicants that may still come through review, but that's an assumption.
It's
Maybe not.
so the last 30-day campaign yielded a total of 249 completed intake forms. So there's a difference between the two. It's a different approach, totally different. It was 3 houses for sale instead of 1. So there's all sorts of reasons. We currently have, because we're doing it in rolling packages to the homeownership counselor, there were 13 additional intake forms completed in the last round that she has given them 2 weeks to complete their applications. And so I believe we'll find out tomorrow, most likely, how many of those 13 have completed their application. So that number may go up from 9. I will let everyone know, certainly the comms committee and anyone else who's interested, if that answers your question.
I think it does. And then I guess it all sort of begs the question of like, are our eligibility requirements overly restrictive? I mean, in my view, they're pretty lax. Like it would be very weird to go down less than 1 person per bedroom.
Correct.
Our income kind of band is 5.
We're doing it right.
10%. Okay.
I think we're doing it right. We have a marketing band that allows you to hit, sort of a larger haystack if you're looking at needles in haystacks. I think there's a little bit of unpacking that I will come prepared to talk about. I just need to kind of crunch some data and grab it from a few different places about maybe some things that we can look at that I can't even speak on right now, that just because I don't know, it might be a little more helpful. I don't think that we've reached, everyone in Kingston, for example, or everyone in the area who might want to buy a home. It's a city of 24,000 people, half of them rent. How many of those, are interested in owning a home? I think there's different ways that we can look at it and work with the homeownership counselor for the next campaign that I think we talked about somewhere in September-ish, and we can really just kind of move in that direction, but to be continued on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, of course.
All right. If we're ready to move on, are we ready? Bob, do you have an acquisition, disposition, and construction update?
I do. Just as an aside, I think the presentations that Mike sent around are very interesting, and I was very impressed by Syracuse. I'm surprised at how much they've got going on out there. That said, I'm going to switch around the order of stuff so that our exciting conversation comes after our boring one. Discussion of the pricing on 111 Downs. This Wednesday, I'm meeting with a realtor, and Mike and I are going to meet with a realtor to get an idea of what it's worth. I guess what do they call it? It's not an appraisal. They call it a market memo, or she had a name.
It's a broker-dealer statement, possibly.
Just to know to give us an idea of what we are looking at as we move into the pathway for disposition of that building. So we'll meet with that realtor on Wednesday, and that'll give us something more to think about as far as what the building is worth as we go forward. So that's pretty straightforward, and we'll report that out next month. Our expectation is that we probably won't be looking at selling the building until the fall. Is that correct, Mike? And that's what we've been talking about. We don't want to interfere with our Greenkill stuff, and we want to make sure that it gets sold, and we don't want to do it in the winter, obviously. So this fall is the target for that. The Greenkill lottery process. What Mike was talking about is very interesting. And last time, if you remember, when we selected the buyers for our houses, we used a process that people could call subjective. Okay, we used the narrative to make a decision about among the qualified applicants, and use that as a way to select the people that we sold the houses to. It made the lawyers nervous, makes everybody nervous. Nobody likes it. Well, I liked it, but and there was, and we were able to get the results that we wanted. Pretty much, we got local people. We got people that are underrepresented in home ownership. So it kind of worked, but there's all kinds of vulnerabilities there, which makes everybody nervous. So it looks like we're going to go for a lottery process as we look at the Greenkill property for sale. And given that there's 9, maybe more pre-qualified, we'll have a list of qualified people to consider, qualified groups to consider. It could be 9, it could be 13, it could be 1 at this point. We really don't know at this point. It will not be a huge number. So the question at hand is, once we have this pool of candidates, how do we conduct a lottery to select this buyer? Mike, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Sorry, just a clarifying point. We actually only have one family who meets the qualifications, who has applied. 9 have applied, 8 have not met the qualifications. Right. So the lottery would look very different if there was only one.
Right.
It would not be a lottery. If there's more than one, in speaking with our homeownership counselor and just making sure we're keeping up with best practices, if there were to be a lottery, it would be at a public meeting with numbers in a hat that would be picked probably by Daniel out of the hat in order to select, so that that is an acceptable way.
Yeah, or even if we wanted to make sure that the board was completely arm's length, a third party. But I mean, Daniel would do that, but there is risk to having a board member make the selection, and we might want to talk about how do we mitigate that risk, and whether we come up with some other individual or method to make a selection if there's more than one. And really, that's open to the board. What do you think, Nate?
Well, I was just going to say, why does anybody need to pick? Like, couldn't we just assign applicants a number and then run it through some sort of like randomization program so that nobody touches it at all?
That's fine. That would be great. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Who presses the randomizer button? I'm serious. Yeah, I know.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we don't want to expose anybody to being accused of, doing anything improper and selecting and coloring the selection.
Could the homeownership counselors do it?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
One of the homeownership counselors, could they select the lottery?
No, but they have told us that they could make recommendations for a third party to do that. The lottery is always separate from the counseling.
Understood. Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
So the question, I mean, we don't have to do this. We have time to think about this, and we don't have to make a decision about who's going to do this, push the button or make the selection or whatever, do the action. Probably at least until next month, and maybe after that, as people get qualified. But I wanted to raise the issue, and I wanted people to think about it and talk about who gets to be the star, if you will, the star or the villain, depending upon where you're sitting. So I'll leave it at that. And if you have thoughts, let's circulate them. And I would expect that we should probably decide it maybe at the next month's meeting.
Mike, did I hear you correct that Pathstone has recommendations?
That
or who to?
I haven't asked them for someone for this because my current understanding was that the board still wanted to be involved in the lottery process. If there's a decision to not do that, I can certainly ask them. And I'm happy to do it in advance if people want me to.
I would just be curious. I would just be curious.
Right. I'm getting Sure. No problem.
you know, it's, so just, well, let's think about it and kick it around and bear in mind, the last part of the ADC committee is construction updates. Mike's done a good job on that at this point. Franklin's moving forward, Greenkill's done. Legacy Cities is marching on. What do you have to add, Owen?
I don't have too much to add to what's going on in Greenkill. Windows are in and the last final things are happening to wrap that project up. And Franklin, as Mike mentioned, it is in contract, and that's the last of our 5 pilot homes to go into a GC contract. So I feel good about that. That project did go into contract for the original amount that the GC proposed during our RFP process, and there's a small handful of scope items that are not captured in that are being captured now, but still stays way under what we approved for that project to go into our starting contract. So anyway, that's in contract, and just as far as I'm concerned, construction has commenced there, though they're not fully mobilized. But we do have open permits on that project already. So we have demolition, and we have window replacement permits and roof replacement permits. So the contractor has a notice to proceed and is able to work in the building and has access and permits. So we are also working with the architect to apply for full permits for full renovation for that building. And we're in the process have started the process and continue the process of ordering owner supplied materials to try to keep up with the GC's timeline. On Legacy Cities, as mentioned, we got a couple of last minute environmental hoops to jump through, which we've been jumping through and continue to jump this week. And I'm working with the building department and Rob to get permits on those 4 houses. I got a call from the building department today that shows what I would call strong intent around our building permits. So no more solid updates, but I dropped off 160 pages of paper that they requested today at the building department. So they can have fun perusing that. That's all my updates. Anybody have questions about what's going on with construction?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Owner supplied materials. Minya, thank you for your contacts with Herzog's, with those guys for owner supplied materials. That's a great deal. And I assume that the owner supplied materials for Franklin Avenue we're gonna be using that resource. Is that a correct, is that a correct assumption?
Well, I see you raising your hand, Daniel. Do you want to field that one?
Sure. Yeah, so that was in my design committee report, but the basic gist of that is that it's not really for owner supplied materials, it's kind of for everything. So they've extended this offer to our contractors as well. So for your 2x4s, your roofing, all of it, which is really incredible. And
Great deal. Yeah, it's a great.
I was amazed by how generous the offer was from Brad Jordan and the team at Herzog's. In terms of owner supplied materials on Franklin, we are unlikely to use that resource a lot because that work has already been done. So it would basically be like starting from square one and would be very time consuming, and we just don't really have the time. On the 4 Legacy Cities buildings, short answer, yes, we will be using that resource to the extent that we possibly can, basically. And to the extent that it makes sense, because, what they said to us too was, if you can find a better price elsewhere for anything, like, we certainly don't want you spending more money just to shop with us, but if we can give you a better deal. So like, we're re-quoting windows and doors through them just to see how the prices compare to quotes that we already have in hand. So yeah, these budgets are low and tight, so
that's a great win. That's a wonderful thing. So
yeah,
the,
really exciting.
we'll have to figure out some way to at the end of the day, to acknowledge their support. It really is important. So,
They are official community partner. As we will be calling them out on social media a bunch. And one of the things that I'm going to do is meet with, I can't remember her name, but the person at Herzog's who manages a lot of their social media and kind of PR stuff, to see what sorts of recognition would be helpful to them and that we can authentically offer. So.
and you gave them t-shirts.
We can give them so many t-shirts, well, at least like 5.
Great, I think that's great. And that's the end of the AD&C report. Thank you, Daniel.
And a beautiful report it was, Bob. Nate, finance and audit. Hi, Erica, welcome.
Hi, Erica. Okay, so finance and audit. Let's start with the ABO compliance and the audit. We are still discussing with the auditor. The last information we got is that statements might be available this week. Erica, did you end up hearing anything else yet?
That was the last email I got from him, that they're finalizing. We should see something this week, and he has a scheduled meeting with Mike, or he's scheduling a meeting with Mike, but nothing, I haven't seen anything else come across.
Okay, so hopefully he'll have something to show us this week. Mike and I'm also joining that call. So Mike and I are both going to chat with him on Wednesday to sort of attack this from all angles, because I know Erica keeps trying to push it along as well. And hopefully get that audit process done, and hopefully at a minimum have some sort of a timeline for when this will be wrapped up. Any questions on that before I move on to anything else you want to add, Erica, before I move on to the monthly financials? Okay. Then what I'll go ahead and do is share the screen. The financial report. Okay, can everybody see that? Cool. Is that the right? Yeah. Okay. So overall, the monthly financial report for May, not too many major changes to report here. So what I'm going to do is kind of similar to what I've been doing in past board meetings, which is just sort of rolling through it page by page so that it's in the video record. But obviously, if anybody has questions, feel free to jump in and stop me. But the overall high level narrative is pretty steady. We had a couple of small fundraising items come in last month. In terms of expenses, there was about $3,000 for the clean out at 111 Downs, about $3,200 for environmental assessments at 3 of our properties at German, Hurley, and Gill Street. And then $70,400 for project expenses at Greenkill from Maida, all of which I understand is within our budgets for each of those projects. So no issues to note there. Here's our profit and loss for May. And here you'll see that $70,400 for the construction expenses at Greenkill. And here's our balance sheet. I'll talk about this cash amount in a minute. But overall, like I said, everything is pretty steady from last month.
Just want to make a note that we're seeing a negative 119,000 on the P&L. And that is just a reminder for those viewing this at a later date and on this call that it's about timing with the revenue. So this month we only received nominal amounts of donations. So when we look at the P&L for the month, we're looking at a snapshot just for the transactions for this month, right? So we got a lot, we're revenue heavy in the beginning of the year, and it's going to start thinning out. Well, not thinning out, but like leveling out. Sorry.
No, thank you, Erica, for flagging that. Yeah, a lot of our revenue was front heavy, especially this year where we got all of the Novo grants up front at the beginning of the year. So that negative 119 is just for the month of May. But all of that is basically drawing down from the revenue that we got early on in the year. Which is why our balance sheet, we're very much in the green on assets and total liabilities and equity. Statement of cash flows with the cash we have at the end of the period. Budget versus actuals. Again, everything is sort of within range. The one thing to flag here is our external communications line item. That is slightly over budget for the year. So we're looking at some cost saving options and also sort of making a note for future, when we start doing the budget next year, in part, again, jump in, Eric, if I'm saying anything that's incorrect, but my understanding is that part of that is the rebranding campaign that we're working on. And again, a lot of that budget was sort of a shot in the dark last year. So we're going to be reallocating certain things as we go forward. Another thing that I'll mention in a few minutes. But overall, everything is in line with what we expect and what we've budgeted. Yeah, any questions?
So we're not completely over budget. We're over budget for this time frame. When the budget versus actual is run, it's at month end, right? So when we talk about our budget, we straight line it. So it's whatever that total is for the year, and we divide it by 12. So in order to see our actuals at month end against the budget, we have to pick a date and time, which would be like the May 30th or whatever that is. Because if we ran it to see a full year's budget, unfortunately, QuickBooks does not have that function. You would see actuals to whatever date in which we ran the report. Does that make sense? So if I ran it for the full year on the 19th, right, you're going to see through June 19th, and you're not going to see what we're really trying to focus on is like, what position are we in at the month end? So there's still some there's availability for the advertising external communications, but that was, kind of part of a lot of the committee conversations, like what do we have left to move forward for this new endeavor. Okay, I'm done.
No, thank you, Erica, that's helpful. Okay, so that sort of brings me to the next couple of discussion items that I want to talk about. So I'm just going to go back to the statement of cash flows. So this matches our cash on hand that we have right now. One thing that I don't know if we actually brought this up in the last board meeting because we were still in the process, but we are working, and Eric has been working really hard on putting together this chart showing exactly what of that cash is obligated versus unobligated. Essentially, what of our cash has already been earmarked towards certain expenses, and providing a breakdown of what that is. So that's in process. We hope to have it in some form to be able to present to the board at the next meeting. But that is coming, and I think will help all of us in better understanding what these financial reports actually mean in terms of like what cash we actually have to spare versus what is already flagged for expenses. So that is coming soon. The other big item I want to mention is the budget for next year. We talked briefly about starting that process. So, you know, a big part of creating that obligated versus unobligated chart is going to help us put together what the budget should look like for next year. So we're going to finalize that process and then get to work quickly on starting to plug in items for the budget next year. My goal is before our next board meeting, and apologies if I didn't tell the rest of the finance committee this yet, but my goal is before the next board meeting to be able to circulate the budget from last year. And that way, if anybody has input on things that they would like to see in the budget next year, please send them to me. I will then be able to present them to our finance committee as we start to have those conversations about the budget next year, and sort of centralize all of those comments as we work towards that process. Cool. Any questions? Daniel, you have a question? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Just out of curiosity, why are we so over budget on software?
Let me go to that one.
That's my fault.
Oh, okay.
We did talk about it in previous meetings. So I host the QuickBooks and I also host Bill.com. And I'm just kind of spending a lot of time running other people's businesses. I forget that I'm supposed to be reimbursed. And I finally submitted the invoice for that. So I promised Nate that I wouldn't do it again. And the invoices now go out every 3 months. And I swear, I kept my word and the invoice went out.
I'm not holding it against you. I'm just curious.
It was like 9 months worth of, I forgot to ask for back. So sorry.
I mean, you're talking to the person who submits receipts like 6 months after the fact. Okay, cool. Does somebody want to enter a motion to accept the monthly treasurer's report?
I enter a motion to accept the monthly treasurer's report. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of accepting the monthly treasurer's report? Aye. Bob, how do you vote? Okay, vote passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nate and Erica for that spectacular report. Aaron, tell us about fundraising.
So in the ongoing journey of Aaron figures out how to fundraise, month 6, there are kind of 2 updates. One is that we discussed in our kind of virtual fundraising meeting, and I know it's been brought up in prior board meetings, having board member goals for fundraising. These goals, you know, they're not minimums. You won't be penalized for not meeting the goal, but as setting an expectation on kind of for a baseline expectation for what board members should try to reach. And you know, you can reach it any way you want, whether it's you give the whole thing or you reach out to your family and give it to donate. It's kind of, there's discretion, but the amount we kind of all decided upon was $1,000 per board member. And that would be per the calendar year. So we're already halfway through the calendar year. So it leaves you about 185 days or so. Erica generously offered for any board member who would like to have a 10 or 15-minute call to go through how to set up the GiveGab fundraiser, the personal fundraiser. Erica generously offered to do that with any board member. I will say, having set mine up through the kind of instruction manual she put together for the last board meeting, it's very easy, and can definitely be put together, and allows you to just send one link to a lot of family and friends, as I am planning to do myself in the next couple days. So if you have any questions for me, please let me know. And if you want to set up a time to talk with Erica about the GiveGab platform and how to use it for yourself, shoot her an email. Is that okay, Erica? Shoot her an email, and you can set up a brief time to talk. The other thing that I want to mention today is that I have completed a grant application to the Hannaford Charitable Foundation. The application would be for $28,000 to buy down the cost of the 4 Legacy City homes. I actually have one more round of edits to incorporate, but this is the draft as it stands. Once I have a final version of it, a couple minor things, and Nate gave me some ways to bring down the word count, which I need to incorporate. I will circulate it to everybody, but I think gives some good kind of background on what the organization is, what the kind of state of housing is in Kingston. This is particularly focused on health related benefits. That's what the grants kind of is focused on. So I specifically talked about the kind of health benefits of safe, stable, and good condition housing, of which the research is plentiful, and talked about the 4 homes in particular, the construction timeline, why we need the homes, etc. So thank you. I'm saying this in the fundraising committee, but I actually ran it through the finance committee. So it was Nate and Mike and Erica who gave me feedback. So thank you very much. Mike, do I need to, you had said a vote, but I don't know if we really need a vote.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe I just was overthinking it. I think this is the presentation is the
Yeah.
thing.
Okay. So I'm gonna finalize this, and with Erica's help, put together the last of the financial documents, submit it in the next few days, or in the next week at least. And then I didn't include it in the schedule, but the only other thing I want to mention is that Mike and I met with a representative of Suncommon, a Kingston-based solar company, who is going through the Legacy City homes to give us some bids. My idea was that if we were to go for the next grant, which I think that I'm gonna try to do, which is for M&T Bank, or bank, they have a grant program. I think my idea, which I'll confirm by the next board meeting, would be to apply for them to fund solar on the Legacy Cities homes, or at least a significant portion of solar on the Legacy Cities homes. But that was, as of now, that's just an idea. I don't think there's anything finalized there yet. And that is really it I have on the fundraising, from the fundraising update. Anything else from anybody else want to mention? Daniel?
I'm so chatty tonight. I just wanted to mention Instagram has built in a new feature that allows you to fundraise directly on your profile. So one of my small missions is to figure out how to do that, and certainly put one on our land bank Instagram profile, and anybody who wants to put one on their own. Once I figure it out, I can send an email.
That'd be great. That would be a huge, that'd be a great resource.
Yeah. Cool.
And I think related to that, I think it's worth mentioning just a need to do better at promoting all the things that the staff are doing on a monthly basis. As I think I recognize having dropped the ball on that. I started to put together a way for us to just kind of track updates. I saw some emails today. Mike put in some dates. And then we need to kind of get some photos together and start drafting social media posts so that we can have things ready to go each week. But I'll probably follow up with Daniel offline about photographs, and then maybe before the next board meeting, send an email to everybody about what the process is going to be.
You can also just encourage the GiveGab platform on Instagram. as well. So like, I think you can do like the link tree, link in bio, and then that having it go to GiveGab. But that's not to say that I am saying that individuals shouldn't encourage your own Instagram fundraiser, whatever platform you are putting the information out there and encouraging people to make donations.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm not really sure like where this lies, but for a while we had Linktree set up and now it's disappeared. I'm not sure who, like I think Rebecca set it up for us. This is a long time ago.
Oh, okay, it's probably gone.
Yeah. So now like every time we announce something, I go in and change the link to just be like to that specific page. So if it's an RFP or whatever, but it would be really, really good if we could get that set up again. Because yeah, then we can just link directly to GiveGab and all of the other things we regularly want people to look at. So just throwing it out there.
I can just setting up a link tree.
Yeah,
I can set up a link tree.
you can.
I mean, do you want me to go back to? Do you want me to go back to all the current posts? And we don't need to talk about this during the board meeting. I'm happy to check with you after the board meeting.
Okay.
But yes,
That's it.
I've set them up before. I think I can do it with you.
Okay, cool. We'll talk. We'll figure it out. Great. Anything else on fundraising?
I think that's it.
Okay. Minya for comms and community engagement.
Okay, so as we discussed in the beginning of the meeting, Mike discussed the outcome and you had brought up the comparison between the last campaign and this one. And we had a long discussion about our limitations in future outreach, which looks like right now the status is that it's limited to social media, newsletters, and website only. As board members, we are not allowed to do any kind of outreach or interact with anybody in terms of flyering and distributing anything that would require human interaction or even dropping off posters or anything like that. So right now, my understanding is that based on state and federal law, there's certain restrictions associated with that, as well as the need for it to be a third party doing the outreach. My concern that I brought up is that a third party doing outreach that's not from the city is not going to do a great job of it because they aren't associated with anybody here. They have to travel, they're not well funded, and they're not well resourced. And that with whether our budget will actually cover for any other type of third-party outreach organization or marketing company. And so my concern, and I did bring this up in a letter, I didn't get a response, so I don't know what the general feeling on that is that there needs to be a meeting with common council members to let them know. As a communication outreach person, as the chair, I can tell you 100% that there are going to be common council members that are going to want to be informed of that ahead of any other decisions made, as well as they're great resources for being able to recommend organizations that could do outreach within their wards or their community. And I think they should be well informed. It would, I couldn't, I'd have to answer to that if I didn't call attention to that. So I would hopefully that meeting can happen within the next couple of weeks just to let them know so they can ask questions and be informed of that switch and change for future campaigns and upcoming campaigns. I do think the social media, since we're limited to that, is a good way to do outreach when we're doing interim outreach and getting people to sign up for the Instagram or Facebook pages so that they'll be notified. And of course, my concern is that if we're limited to digital and outreach, it's going to be a form of virtual redlining, which is something that I really hope everyone would really want to avoid. So that's the first part of it. Then we, so that's sort of the main focus there. And then after that, it looks like we're sort of trying to figure out a way to get set up for the next campaign for Franklin. I know we have a couple months, but that's going to come up really quickly. And Sorry, I just lost that. So, sorry. So one of the other, we talked about having sort of general information, one sheet card for marketing that just has general guidelines when we're not on camp, like when we're not on campaign, or even if we are, that just gives a general introduction on what we do. Which my suggestion, if we do that, would be to have a QR code with our social media on it that we can hand out to people, and it's really just basic information. Hopefully maybe some bullet points associated with that. Just the first question, a couple of questions, frequently asked questions, if that's possible, or if not, just basic information about how the organization functions and what it does. And we had talked about doing the pathways card, but I think just for general basic information for lay people might be a more simple breakdown that we can hand out. And then we talked about offering trainings about what we do as an organization, and then so that people can be informed on how maybe basic, how you apply for a general interest form, and then in that circumstance, then we'd have to come up with a marketing plan just for that. One of the other things that we've discussed, and we've had a couple, we had the let me see, we had the was it just the credit training, Erica, with M&T Bank? No one showed up for that. One of my feelings about that, and again, this is something I just didn't discuss in the meeting because it took some thought, is really to work with a local bank that people might have more familiarity with the employees and interaction with. My first thought would be Ulster Savings. They hold a lot of community events, give awards, have banquets, parties throughout the year. I see a lot of local people at these events. They know a lot of the employees and would probably be very comfortable if some of those guys were actually offering the trainings and have them actually do an event at a localized or a community center event. That would be somewhat on a quarterly, regularly. My dog's about to bark, I apologize. And to work in that direction, it just seems like having someone local and in-house might be a better direction to go. We can discuss that further, but I've had a few people come to me even in the last few days actually to offer like the possible trainings, and it just, some of them are just kind of a piecemeal, put it together themselves, and I feel like having a local bank might be the best idea. We can discuss that in the comms meeting. I just wanted to throw that out there to see what everybody else thinks. And we can offer multiple types of training, which I think would be a great idea. And just see, go ahead, Erica. While
I do want to point out that M&T is local to, there is a branch in Kingston. I think it has a lot to do what you had mentioned kind of at the beginning of the comms, is just like the limitation on marketing, like what is allowed to go out versus what's not allowed to go out. Because there's just me and the webinar presenter, and I was like, I think we're going to call it. So finding the right way to issue the communications without, violating some state or federal, because when they're not talking on the behalf of Kingston Land Bank, they're really just sharing information. Because whether it's Ulster Savings Bank, which has been generous to KCLB, or M&T or Roundout or whatever, if the information is not available to the people, they cannot attend.
Yeah, I'm not saying so much that is the marketing part of it. It's something that would be more likely attended, in my opinion, if it was in person and had people able to access it in one centralized location at a time after work, which I know we could actually most likely get easily from Ulster Savings, because they do after hours events like that. And I'm just going from personal experience, I don't see M&T kind of out there. I do see Ulster Savings out there. So that is the only reason why I would say they might be better accessible. That's the only thing I'm thinking of. And I did just go to an event that they had, which was an awards for a Black Excellence Award event that they held. And at that event, it's just how accessible they are, how many people know and love the folks there. I don't see any M&T putting those on so much, not to disrespect them, but I just think in terms of response from the community, Ulster Savings may just have more legitimate response just to seeing their name. That's really what I feel. I mean, and again, we can talk about this further. It's not written in stone. It's just, this is the last couple of days and just looking into it or something that I thought would be.
I'm not
Yes, that's
offended, don't worry.
Yeah, okay.
Take no offense.
Yeah, it's just personal experience. I've never seen M&T ever out in any kind of event or that doesn't mean that they haven't been there. It's just I've seen Ulster Savings more active. That's all. And if anybody wanted to make their comments on that now, if they want to put it into our next comments meetings, I'm happy to incorporate that. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it for now. If anybody wants to say anything.
I just kind of both with comms and fundraising, but thank you to everyone who helped plan the landscaping event this weekend at Greenkill, particularly Minya for looping in Benny's. He was amazing, and that was just a stroke of brilliance. And I hope he comes to all of our events.
Yeah, I second that. He was great. It was just the board members that landscape, but then in the last 30 minutes between 1:30 and 2, about 20 or 25 people came and walked through the homes and got themselves an ice. So for that alone, it was a huge success. Just to show people the house and get people excited. And a few people asked about how to apply for the board as well. So
yeah, and I only talked to one person who said they might apply for the board, and I was like on my way out, so I didn't get his information. But if anybody knows how to reach anybody who expressed interest, like maybe just follow up, because we could certainly use the applications. And the one person I talked to seemed great, so.
I can always reach out to Kamir and see. It was his friend, so I can always see if we can connect us. So.
Thank you. Cool. Great. Do you want to go right into governance?
Yeah, maybe one more thing for me, Minya, the Common Council meeting, because I've been sort of thinking about that all day, because I just wasn't sure, like, I would love to discuss that and then also a piece of good news, right? Because maybe we could pair it, if it's in front of the Common Council in August to review the city's new disposition policy, maybe it could be paired with that. I think we also are running it against open meetings law. So I think we can only speak to small groups of them at a time, as I'm sure you know. So that's just another consideration, but I think it's a good idea to get in front of them because it's a big limitation.
For what it's worth, I was sort of thinking about it the same way, just like it's historically been very difficult to kind of get the Common Council, like, especially engaged. So I was thinking rather than ask them to like go to a meeting in the next couple of weeks and then again, probably in August, maybe they go together. The other possibility, in my view, is the board chair is supposed to give an annual kind of report to the council. It's supposed to happen, I think, in February this year. I haven't done it yet, in large part because the sort of pipeline discussion felt like it was nearing a resolution at that point. So I was like in March, and then it was like in April. And so I'm sort of overdue for that. And so that's another opportunity to just talk to everybody at once rather than smaller meetings. So, but I do think it's a really good idea. So let's maybe continue talking about it offline. And
yeah, I mean, it could be Alderwoman Mohammed and then Majority Leader Worthington, as well as Alder Woman at Large as well, Andrea Shout, and you know, just that if that's what, I don't know how many, is it, wait, it's 3 people, I think, or it's quorum for them, right? If it's for the meeting now, but
Or
4, so, yeah. But I mean, just to throw it, but I know, understand it's talking about it outside of, if it's talking about it outside of the board meeting. And Bartek, do you have something else to add?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. So governance, we talked about the vacancies, the 2 vacancies to see at, I think at the point of the meeting, we only had 1 application at the time. So it looks like somebody else had applied. I guess it's not the person that was on the Saturday meeting, I mean, at the Saturday event. But we discussed having rolling interviews as well, as they come in, and extending where we had a deadline. Now we just have it as an ongoing process where people can apply at any time. I'm sorry, I'm just going to move my dog out of the way. Sorry. So basically that, and then also having a social media sort of put up an ad as well to get the word out there. We talked about that with Bartek, just letting everybody know that we were looking and seeing if we could get more applicants through that process as well. And I'm gonna put that up. Hopefully we'll get more people applying as well. And then we also might just have it build a pool, like I think Daniel had said, we build a pool of future possible applicants as well. So, yeah. And then we, unless I miss anything, we discussed the equity inclusion training and the budget for the training. And it looks like we, for now, we're going to table anything outside of just getting board training and is it staff training as well, that was offered to us at this point. We do have the budget for that, correct? As far as I understand, I don't want to get that information wrong, but that rolled in around, should I say the number? Board. So it's around $5,000 for the training for equity and inclusion training aspect of it, which we do. There was other aspects of the training that we can put down the road when we actually get the funding for it. And then we'll discuss that as that comes along. I understand in our next governance meeting, since it's quarterly. So by that point, we'll probably have more information on whether we'll have funding for any other types of training. But I think just the overall training for board members and staff would be priority at the moment. And then on, I'm just having issues. I was in the right file that we had. There we go. Okay. Sorry about this. And we really didn't have a lot going on. And then we did discuss having a board member commitment document, which we had discussed sort of a couple of months ago, which I could draft based on the New York State. There's like a basic document out there that you can find, do a search, and I can just draft something based on that, which just basically says when you sign on, it gives you an idea of what your expected commitments are, so that we kind of have something to point to if somebody is not able to or meet the demands of working on this board. And a lot of it, you know, it can be easy to misinterpret what a working board means, and it might just be a good idea to have the expectations in advance so people can decide whether they actually want to take on that commitment ahead of time, and so that it is also less maybe just less sensitive, or somebody's not hit sort of blindsided if they have to come to them and say, hey, you're not coming to the meetings, you're not making, not actually engaging. So I'll get that. I'll send it out for everybody to look over and approve or edit as soon as I can get a chance to. And then if we have some applicants for the board right now, then all I need is just their contact information, and I can reach out to set up a meeting or an interview with them. And I don't know if we want to set up a set amount of days and wait till we have more applicants so that we can sort of have a group of interviews into one day or a couple of days, rather than kind of scatter them out through weeks and have to make sure that everybody has availability throughout multiple days, as opposed to having maybe 2 or 3 set days where we have multiple interviews in those days. So to me, it sounds like that would be easier to do with all of our schedules, and maybe wait a month or so and see if we get more applications after the Instagram and the Instagram ad that we put out there. And then I think that's how we will do the Facebook ad for the board vacancy applications. And I do have one more whistleblower disclosure policy that is still missing, and I will once again reach out to that person again and see if we can get that, and not to be the last person whose information we need to get. And that's what I have, unless anybody else wants to. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
I just wanted to add about because I feel like not everyone's been super involved in the discussion on the diversity, equity, and inclusion front. So the proposal that we got, and huge thank you to Minya for connecting the dots here, was from Keisha Carter, who's the Chief Diversity Officer at Coordinated Care Services out of Rochester. So basically their proposal was kind of 3 parts. The first is 4 trainings with staff and board members. So that's the part that we're gonna do. Obviously, everybody's attendance is expected. The second part was assist in developing a more inclusive application and review process. I think it makes sense to kick the ball down the road on that a little bit, just because that process is sort of in flux right now. And like we've talked about during this meeting, like we're still trying to kind of figure out where the board actually fits into that process, kind of, if at all. And then the third is provide recommendations for recruitment and community connectedness. And I think, again, because that feels a little bit up in the air with this sort of new way that we're supposed to be promoting our work and talking about the sales, so yeah, I think like Minya said, we will revisit some version of those next year when we have more budget allocated to it, and sort of evaluate, I think with Keisha, like what would be most helpful given kind of our limitations of how we're allowed to engage with the community. So is that a yes?
I just feel like I wasn't part of that conversation, so I don't know what the ultimate number is. But I think as we're looking at the budget and considering what's happened over the last couple of weeks / months / the world, that needs to take priority before anything else, because we're serving a community that is impacted by how we respond and interact, and how we digest information and disseminate it, right? So, and because this is a working board, like even more so, there's like we don't even have employees, we're just like 4 consultants, right? So everybody needs to be involved because we are KCLB, every single one of us. And each thing that we do impacts the community. So I would just I'm trying to be very vocal and saying like this needs to be a priority and not just the I don't know, the discount version of it. It needs to be a bigger thing, because you don't know what you don't know. And we can have a greater impact when we all feel informed, and how we go about the next round, like the next round or the round we're doing right now. I think it's really important. So I would encourage making it like a July or August thing instead of a January.
Well, so the trainings, the 4 sessions, I think we're basically trying to get into contract with her and like get on the schedule now. I have no idea kind of how far she's booking out and stuff, but that I think was planned for this calendar year. And then
Well, I was just saying, you mentioned there's like the proposal or something was like a bigger thing.
It was basically
steps.
3 parts, and the other 2 parts were a lot about sort of community engagement and application and review process. So like, I don't think we really have an application and review process anymore. I mean, the board is not reviewing applicants, and Keisha did already provide feedback on the application, like the intake form that we have, but we're not using the application that we used on the first 3 with the narrative, and all of that work is just being done by the home ownership counselor. So like, it wasn't an attempt to like make
No,
it fall apart.
you don't have to go over the details. I just know that I'm always telling you we have no money. So I get it, but this is something that I feel like if there's an extra dollar to be spent, it's on this, so that we can move forward. So we don't have to go into the details of the proposal. I'm just encouraging that if there's an opportunity to take on a comprehensive package, we utilize our dollars to do that before we like buy another flower pot for a lawn or something. I don't know. I'm gonna still tell you we don't have money, but this is something I think we should spend.
I think we're on the, I will speak for myself. I'm on the same page. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to working with her. Mike and I both met with her. Minya, I can't remember if you were in that meeting. Okay, right. Thank you. Sorry, brain is mush. She was great. I think it's going to be really valuable. So anyway, just wanted to sort of clarify what happened. Are we ready to move on? Okay. Design committee, we've talked a lot about it already. So the Franklin pretty much squared away because we were planning to start that project a long time ago. I'm anticipating that various things will need to be re-spec'd due to going out of stock and whatnot, but we'll cross those bridges as we get to them. The legacy cities designs are coming along, but the recent sort of offer from Herzog's is changing that process a little bit. So less finding weird stuff on Wayfair that's affordable and more sitting down with an actual person to go over catalogs and look at samples and do all this stuff. So it's just a different process. So that's sort of underway. And then the other thing is basically the logo and rebranding stuff. So I had a kickoff meeting with Katie Dwyer Designs, who's a Kingston-based graphic design team. And the timeline on that. So basically, like we're really trying to get this done before the next sales and marketing period, I believe, which is anticipated in September for Franklin. But it looks like we'll have something to present to, and I think the process we landed on was design committee to comms to full board, but we can keep talking about that. But looks like we'll have something to present to the board in mid-August or so. So if not a little before. So that's cool. That's kind of it for me. We have no members of the public still, so we'll skip that. I have just we don't need to tackle this right now, but we've had some shifting with committees, and I wanted to sort of check in and see if people are comfortable in the committees that they are currently in. Erica, thank you. Keep
So
looking.
I can stay on. I just have to run to my kitchen. So
Do your thing. Yeah, so if people want to leave committees or join new committees, just for sort of the lay of the land, I personally think having at least 3 members on a committee is a good thing. So acquisition disposition currently does have 3 members. Governance kind of has 3 members. So it's Minya and Bartek, and then I sort of just like stepped in, but I don't need to be on that committee. I've served on it before. I also don't mind being on that committee, but if somebody would like to do it, let me know. Comms is currently just Minya and Bartek. So I think it would be great if somebody else wanted to hop on board that. Same thing with finance. It's just Aaron and Nate right now. Fundraising is well staffed with Aaron, myself, Nate, and William. And I think the design committee in terms of like board engagement is probably fine, but if people are particularly interested in joining it, obviously let me know. So does anyone have feelings about this right now, or should we kind of talk about it over email, or because I can just start appointing people whenever. Don't all talk at once. Okay. So for now, we'll just leave everything the same, but think about it, particularly comms and finance, I think. We'll talk about it next month or over email or something. We'll talk about it. Also, tomorrow is election day. Please vote. And I think that's it for me. Anyone else have any new business?
I just have one quick thing. I would encourage people to take a quick look at the stuff that I learned at the vacant, abandoned, and deteriorated academy, which Mike sent around. If you get a couple minutes, some of those modules are worth reading, are worth looking at. It was an interesting adventure in and the group organization, the Center for Community Progress, is a very interesting organization. Someday we may do business with them. I think they have a good handle on this stuff. So just if you get if you're bored someday, it's worth looking at. There's some stuff in there to learn from.
Yeah, thank you for sending that around and for attending, because I didn't, but I wanted to, but I didn't. Cool. Anyone else? Anything else? Thanks, everybody. It's a really good month. Can't wait for next month. All right. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn, I suppose.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Couldn't hear you, Daniel, but I'm guessing you were asking for a vote.
Yeah, sorry. All in favor of adjournment. Did I cut out? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. See ya.
Take care.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Bye.